In the world of dissociative identity disorder, one of the most complex and most misunderstood part for outsiders are alters, or parts as I like to call them. This is one of the main reasons why I'm working on my own indie game called PathToHappiness, but I'll talk more about the project in due time. In this video, I'm going to guide you through what d.i.d is, how it is characterized, what alters are and how they present themselves at any given time, my thoughts on d.i.d fakers, how I manage switching, self-perception as a system and as an alter, living with multiple parts, the ups and downs of d.i.d, what helped me to transfer each one of my parts into tangible representations, and how it all builds up into the real world experience, which is also called fronting, but more generally about the disorder from the point of view of someone who has it. But first, hi, I'm Olyx. Welcome back if you're new, glad to have you here. I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder professionally around 3 years ago, even though I've had doubts 3 years prior to getting the diagnosis. I'm not going to go too deep into the decade-long journey I went through on getting the diagnosis, but if you want to hear about it, leave a comment saying tell us the story, and I might tell you about how crazy it all was and how getting the diagnosis actually helped me learning about myself as both a person, a system, and from the point of view of the disorder. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the basics, shall we? d.i.d, or dissociative identity disorder, is a dissociative disorder that forms during the early childhood of a child who suffers and has to endure repeated / constant stress and trauma to the point where the mind, which usually associate every experiences the child has had so far before the age of 6, dissociates these experiences instead of actually associating them. It is in itself a coping mechanisms to everything that happened to the person and also a survival mechanisms. It is notably stronger as time goes on and as the abuse continues / the mental state keeps being disorderly. But how is d.i.d characterized? In popular medias, not very well at all most of the time, hence why I'm working again on PathToHappiness, but again, more on that in due time. But in the real world, dissociative identity disorder is characterized by the presence of 2 or more alters / distinct personality states within a person, which makes them a system. It is a silent disorder, which means that you wouldn't know that someone has it unless they tell you. Note that there are approximately as many people with d.i.d as people with green eyes, but d.i.d is a whole spectrum in itself, which varies to different degrees. The vast majority of systems also suffer from comorbid disorders such as ADHD, being on the autism spectrum, substance abuse, eating disorder, whether voluntary or not, depression, but most importantly PTSD, CPTSD, anxiety disorders, depersonalizations, derealizations, dissociations, which these 3 are really the core of d.i.d. Let me know in the comments if you want me to go deeper into any of these subjects and how they correlate d.i.d, because these are super interesting topics, and that's really what makes it hard to diagnose. I'm not here to make you pity those who have d.i.d, I'm just here to make you understand it and teach it to you, and teach you about how it could be possible to manage these symptoms if you also have d.i.d. If you're wondering how legitimate I am on my views, well, let me clear things off real quick. These views were formed through the years I spent working on myself both as a person and as a system to make sure that I stay alive and somewhat healthy both inside and out, be the good person I always knew I was supposed to be, and learn about d.i.d. That's not to say that I'm perfect, because I sure as hell am not, but I always try to be a little better each passing day, even through the hardest of times and the hardest of days with d.i.d, because deep down I really enjoy doing good and trying to get better, and it gives me purpose being able to embody change and its virtues as well as trying to make people see the best in themselves and others as well. It really helps me manage d.i.d and not lose my mind completely while falling into the darkest places I used to be as cries for helps. But enough talk about me, let's talk about alters. So each alter has their own distinct voice, which can include accents most of the time. Each alter also has their own personality, gaze, attitude, energy, clothing style, even though like some use the same pieces as others, but it's like in the real world, so it's not really weird, you know, it's like sharing clothes with your friends. They all have their own posture, thoughts, thinking patterns, wants, traumas, memories associated to them, coping mechanisms, needs, goals, handwritings, and basically what makes a person who they are. In my opinion, each alter is an entire person of their own, which just happens to share the same body as others, while like one is fronting in the real world, the others are stored inside. Some systems have distinct visions about their inner world, but it's all hypothetical and can be worked over time. It is mainly a way for the brain to make sense of what is happening, as you don't really have memories inside the inner world mostly because dissociative bridges and barriers. Each alter doesn't have the same role within a system, and there are many roles available which are also misunderstood, but these roles and why some are misunderstood are topics for future videos. The thing is, you really can't control when, where, and why certain parts take over, and so for multiple reasons. But before we get into these reasons, let me tell you something. Dissociative identity disorder is not cool, it's not a trend, it's not something to be faked, and it sure as hell is not something you would want to experience if you didn't have it. There have been countless accounts of fakers of d.i.d.s, which some became very popular on social medias and trivialized it to gain followers, recognition, validation, or to feel like they actually belong somewhere without thinking of the impact they have on the people who actually have it, like myself. While there is something to be said about content creation, if your entire brand is that d.i.d person, it's not, in my opinion, very interesting, and it does not very accurately represent what living life with d.i.d is. Growing up with d.i.d makes you different from both an emotional and mental standpoint. I'll also go over growing up with d.i.d in another video, but my point is, the fakers who feel different from normal people don't understand themselves enough to know the difference between being an obnoxiously misrepresenter of what they feel and being a mentally disturbed loser who wants to capitalize off of others' disorders. These fakers are mostly teenagers though, so I'm gonna cut them some slacks because teenagers do some weird fucking shit as cries for helps, but the problem continues the more time does, and a good way to know if someone is faking is to ask them to talk directly to certain alters. There are some other ways, like if they only have fictional characters, and I shit you not, this actually happened to me while I was talking to someone. They told me they had the entire cast of a fucking anime as alters, and I was like, that's utter bullshit. Or if that's all they talk about, because d.i.d is so much more than just alters and the fucking disorder in itself. It's a way of living. But why do alters front? You know, alters take control of the body at given times, but these switches are always in response to something, whether it is a triggering thought such as PTSD, flashback of traumatic memories, being overwhelmed with hurtful thoughts. In order for a part to take over, there needs to be a trigger to create a reaction. They front to protect the body and the brain from itself. The reaction depends a lot on the trigger. It can be a rapid switch where one takes the place of another, such as in fight or flight scenarios, or it can be a slow burn switch, which usually happens when there is a rotation into getting back into the host after fight or flight moments, you know? But switching and getting back into the rotation into the host takes a lot of energy. In terms of memory though, sometimes we switch without remembering a huge part of what happened while the part was away. But there is often something like a hint of context behind switching, so we're not totally lost in the moment. That's why I said you can't really control it, you know? You can only control the length the dissociation goes to, but even that is very hard, takes a ton of energy and takes a lot of learning. In order to stabilize the switching and the possible muscle spasms, twitches, derealization, depersonalization, dissociation moments, plus all the emotions that come with it, there are many good and healthy options, such as grounding techniques, music, breathing exercises to reduce anxiety and racing thoughts. There is body scanning, whether in your mind or in front of a mirror, naming your emotions and laying them out on paper or through art, and many more. If you're looking to go the professional route, EMDR and cognitive and comportamental therapy, which is TCC, are your best options, as well as spoken therapy. But I really advise you to do that with someone who is qualified and someone you can trust and feel comfortable with. Having to dive deeply into traumas might reopen them, and if you're not being handled properly, it could go wrong. I've only heard good things about them though, but I feel like these are concerns you should be aware of. If you feel like you need to sit down and control the symptoms, do it, because you'll always feel better afterwards. One resource I use, and this is not a sponsored video, is the Finch app. It helps me keep track of my mood, it helps me with my tasks and goals every day, and I'm already over 150 days streak so far. At its core, dissociative identity disorder affects the perception of self and reality as a whole. It is very versatile, meaning that each alter having their own perception changes the way the system interacts with the world around them on a fundamental and neuroplastic level. We don't even have the same eyesight. Some of us have to wear glasses like I do, while others don't. We don't even have the same handwriting, you know? It's on the outside where each one of us uses clothing, attitude, hairstyles, visible characteristics, and more to be discerned by the system's eyes, like our eyes, for visual recognition of repeated patterns of being. On the inside though, it's managing the trains of thoughts colliding, feeling your mentality being overwritten in an instant by the one who's going to take control, and all in all, it's your entire brain changing into someone else's. This can be hella tricky to navigate and confusing, but with the right steps you can learn to manage it better and easier as time goes on. Living with multiple parts of yourself is hard, but having a safe space and being followed and surrounded by the right people help tremendously, honestly. It is super frustrating at times, but it's a strength too, because you go deeper than most into everything, and d.i.d folks are usually multi-talented or jack of all trades without really trying to. It's not to say that it's a superpower of any kind, because it's clearly not, but it's somewhat of a trade-off from all the shit it brings along with the condition itself, you know? Especially since ADHD and being on the autism spectrum already give people so many kinds of niche interests. One of d.i.d's strongest part is the dissociated memory, so when it comes to friendship, relationships with partner, friends, acquaintances, or whatever, it can get super complicated because it feels like you forgot something when you really didn't, and things just happen inside your mind and the memories are being dissociated through whichever part was there when the person was there, and some people actually make some parts front more than others, but you might have to explain that you have dissociative identity disorder to a person if they don't know you have it, and sometimes like you have to explain why you don't feel like yourself. And some people will understand, some won't, and it's really up to you to decide who you tell if you have a problem with telling others and the reactions it might create. Keeping your inner peace is crucial and actually essential with d.i.d, and we're more prone to getting burned out because we already spend so much energy just trying to exist. And sometimes even just waking up and getting out of bed is too much, is something that's really hard to navigate with d.i.d. We still do stuff on the side, but we're mostly not ready to give our piece up for what others would want us to do. That's not being stubborn though, even though yes, there is some kind of stubbornness inside of it, but it's actually taking care of an already fragile mental health, especially if the topics you're asked to do are related to traumatic events in your past. There are ways to get recognized as handicapped/disabled with d.i.d, but I'm still learning about the process myself, and I'm still learning to trying to integrate it into my life, so I won't really go deeper into it. But there are criterias which make you eligible for the title, and I might give an update on Instagram. I probably won't, but here is my Instagram anyway, in case I end up actually being recognized as disabled because of the traumas, and my traumas being recognized in my day-to-day life by my psychiatrist and the organizations that takes care of disability. Living with d.i.d as a system really is more or less like being a computer with multiple users, if we're being honest here. Dissociation, derealization, and depersonalization pretty much being the lock screen with tasks running in the background at full capacity. Is like your computer is locked, but the fans are turning super fucking fast because it's overheating inside, and then it just becomes this whole like, yeah, let's just log in and close everything and start fresh again. That's really a good way, I think, of putting out what dissociation and the process of being in limbo between switching is. These are really some of the biggest ups and downs about d.i.d that I can think of. But now let's take a closer look at how I managed to transform all of these experiences of self into something tangible and also visualized representation when it comes to recognizing, characterizing, sorting, and processing each of my alter. As a system, I consider myself like an avatar for whichever part to front. But on a deeper level, creating 3D models, lookbooks, core outfits with color swatches, studying personality archetypes and subtypes, deep dives into the alter's memories, color palettes, playlists, Pinterest boards, taking notes, and meditating while doing so, shadow work, and inner exploration were really some of the most effective things that helped me to transfer which experience belongs to which part of myself as a system. It doesn't really have necessarily to be a 3D model when it comes to representing your alters. It can be cool to draw your alters and put a lot of detail into them. I just did 3D models because I was already pretty advanced in 3D character creation since I've been doing it for almost 10 years. But the basics stay the same anyway. In general, each character comes from an idea of who that character is, what they represent, how their lore impacted them both physically and mentally, and so using character design rules but also breaking them for reasons which make sense to you really advanced my way of envisioning alters. After all, it's all a way of communicating, whether it is like feelings, messages and emotions, whether subtly or not, and ironically or not. The same goes for alters. They are fictional in the sense that you wouldn't see two of your alters physically in the real world with you at any time whatsoever. But with the d.i.d, you also are these characters because your mind turns into theirs whenever it's their time to front. I am really tempted to make a video explaining all the design tricks and choices I use to create the visuals of each one of my alters visualizations, but it would take super long to explain here, and I really reserve that to meet my alter videos, where I will be using the motion capture rig that I am trying to pull together. But if you're really interested in it, do let me know in the comments and I will make a series on character design soon. I already planned on making 3D character creation tutorials anyways, but exploring the design choices doesn't really fit the technical aspect of materializing the preconceived concepts. All in all, each alter within a d.i.d system is to be loved and cared for because there is potential in each one of them, as there is potential in each person in the real world. Fronting and more generally being present in the real world is something that is already fleeting during like the era we are living in, and you really have to choose which fight you want to fight. But living with d.i.d is simply a different lifestyle from the norm, as being neurodivergent is different from the holistic experience of life, holistic meaning neurotypical. You can't actually understand it unless you're living it, but I hoped through all of my work and my art to just give a little bit more of an inside view of what it is and what managing dissociative identity disorder and living with it is like. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments, what point resonated with you the most, and if you're a system yourself, and like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and see ya.